Hey, welcome to Geek Freaks. I am Frank, and today we are with SG Blaise from the Last Lumenian. How you doing, SG?
I'm doing wonderful, Frank. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. And returning, we have the wonderful Jenny Stevens. How you doing, Jenny?
I'm doing great. Great to be here.
Wonderful. Jenny, it's been too long since we've talked. Can you kind of fill people in on what you do? Because I just love following you online.
Well, that's lovely. I am essentially a fandom development, which is really audience development. And I make sure that all of our geek fans get to be in touch with the IPs they love, and that the IPs they love are sustaining and spending time with them, building relationships as opposed to just doing campaigns. So that's what I do. And I make sure that those relationships are built up and that we get to create a lot of really fun content from the IP to the fans.
That's so useful. I mean, it's hard to really, once you get in the zone on your work, the creating part, you forget that you have to kind of share it, and it's a back and forth with your fandom. So that's perfect.
Yeah. No. And it's hard sometimes for IPs to try to, especially small independent ones like SG, where, oh, wait, now I got to go market my things. And they, SG is going to talk about this, but she loves her fans. So a lot of what she wants to spend time doing is being there in person, engaging. And so what I can do is I can help lift that up as opposed to her having to worry about the machine that's behind it.
Yeah, yeah. Now, SG, you are the writer of this fantastic fantasy sci-fi series. We have Lila, who's this warrior princess, really amazing character. I'm in the middle of the Last Lumenian myself. Can you kind of break down what this world is like for the people at home?
Absolutely. I like to call the Last Lumenian series as Star Wars meets Lord of the Rings meets Princess Bride. It's PG-13, clean language, kissing only, no chili peppers here. It's perfect for fans of all those movies and audience of 14 plus. We do have some battle scenes, but otherwise it's a clean coming of age story of this rebel princess who doesn't need saving.
That is always nice to see. And she has some friends along the way. We have Colum and Glenna. What's this friendship like? And is that something that you wanted to pull from your own life?
I love that friendship, Frank, because they're often trying to help her and they hinder her. And also, I love that Callum and of course we have Aroth. They're contrasting each other of what kind of love Lila could have. And then we have Glenna, who's supposed to help her, supposed to be the best friend, but she's judging the main hero to the point that they have a big fight. And I love seeing how the hero works these issues out and how she chooses her true love and how she maintains her friendship with Glenna.
And that's something that, you're talking about this being, good for the younger readers and stuff like that. Those are the struggles they're dealing with every day. And it's hard to find something that's echoing that voice that they're constantly fighting with, at school and with their friends. And so it's good to see that there's a place for it right here. It's amazing.
Thank you.
For those who did not know about this book, what was the start for you? Where did you get this idea? How did you want to invest in this world?
The idea for this book series, Frank, came to me in a dream. I was in Austria during a cross-country family vacation. Of all the places, it had to be Austria. I woke up and it was middle of the night, pitch black, and I had this idea and I'm trying to type it up on my phone and it keeps growing and growing and it's 3 books. And it took 6 years to develop that idea and now we're on book 5. Coming out this December. I keep pinching myself, Frank. What an amazing ride.
And it's well received. Everybody I see talk about this book is loving it, the series. And so it shows that dream out in the middle of Austria now is something in people's hands, and that's just really fun to see.
Thank you. It's absolutely a pleasure.
That is amazing. So from that original dream into what we have today, how has that changed? And what kind of themes from the real world did you want to implement as you went along?
I definitely noticed that what was happening in my life affected the books. And it's very interesting because I noticed after the books were written.
Yeah.
So one of them, there is an element of grief. Our main hero is dealing with grief. She has struggle in her friendship, in her family. She doesn't know where she belongs. When I came to this country, believe it or not, I couldn't speak a word in English. So I was definitely searching for where do I fit in? How am I going to follow my dream when I thought I'm going to be writing books in Hungarian because I was born in Hungary. So it was a very interesting journey of self-discovery, both for myself as the author and for my hero, who also deals with claustrophobia-induced panic attacks, who deals with meddling bosses, gods, those are her bosses. She deals with, pesky love interest. There's so much going on that I hope every reader finds something that they can relate to.
Now, how do you balance that? How do you not dive too much into your personal life, being like, oh, claustrophobia, for example, let's just use that. Oh, I've had this episode in the past or whatever, and try to bring it back to a story because it feels like it would be too easy to be too invested.
Well, I'm definitely not writing a memoir. I can tell you that, Frank. I've been able to piece my life together. My friends definitely pick on certain things that they know.
Okay.
The way I balance this, Frank, is that I use it as an inspiration. I tap into the feelings, the experiences. How do I describe the pain that means when you break up with someone, or the pain of losing a parent? That's where I take my inspiration from, and I infuse it into the books.
And that right
I want
there,
to say something.
yes, of course.
Hold on, because this is really important. I'm so sorry.
No.
This is huge. This is where so many of the fans that talk to SG, so they've read the book, they've connected. That emotional connection that they have in that story, so much sci-fi, I love it. I read an enormous amount of it, but a lot of it can be very dystopian and very arm's length, or many times very distant, very hard to connect. It may be a great analogy for what's going on in our world, but you may not connect to it. SG's story is one of the reasons it makes my job so easy for her to do work with her, is the fans read it, they connect, then they meet her, and then they really get it. And there's that personalization, SG, that you put in that makes it such a connection for fans. And honestly, that's what studios and big brands would beg for. And it's what you've written naturally into your books.
Thank you, Jenny. That means a lot coming from you.
Well, and to reiterate that too, SG, and another thing to think about is, you talked about, having to basically learn a language to be able to write in that language. What you're talking about, the emotions, that's universal. That goes beyond just in English or Hungarian. That everybody understands, and that's why something like Pixar does well. Well, that's why everybody identifies with the Last Lumenian, is they see it right there. That's great.
Thank you.
Now, going into this idea that we're talking about sci-fi, and again, it has that lens on our modern day problems, but we also have so much fantasy, which I'm a big fan of. How do you blend those two together in one world?
The way I blend sci-fi with fantasy is that I create a world that has technology that affects them. Then I create space travel, and then there is a war that's intergalactic, but we have revolutions. So I'm connecting them and looking at how does this affect? Are they as advanced technologically as they are advanced by societal issues, right? And often the answer is it's not balanced. So I try to showcase that if we have someone who's way too progressed by technology, but they're behind the way the society progresses, that's an issue. So it allows me to create a platform where I can magnify certain issues that we may encounter in our own lives.
Yeah. And then how do you bring in the fantasy elements to that to kind of enhance the experience?
The way I bring in the fantasy element is there is magic everywhere. Yeah. I love magic so much that in the stories, it's inherent. Everyone knows about it. And then we have the gods, of course. We have magical creatures. And then our main hero gets to discover her own magic. And it's not always the way it should. So we have mystery tied to it that allows the readers to go on this journey with the main hero to discover the mysteries and secrets together.
Now, yeah, we have actually a couple gods in this story. We have I'm reading this, so I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but Lumia, the goddess that she's working with, right? Cool, got that one. And then we also have other gods that are not necessarily on her side, the god of chaos. How does that relationship work? Because it's kind of a boss, it's kind of something you're worshiping. That's a tough one to do.
Oh, absolutely. When I thought of these two gods, I thought of having, someone who is maybe inherently evil and someone who's inherently good. But what if that's only the surface? What if they actually have human emotions? They have jealousy, they have envy, and they lie, right? So they have all these human aspects to them. And it's not always the God you think that lies, it's always someone else. So I like to play with how do you look at yourself and how do you act? And it can be a big difference between the two.
And then going back to the younger reader who deals with adults that are doing what's best for their interests, sometimes not always in the interest of the, what they think they want. Is there something there with like parenting or with authority figures that people are coming across that you wanted to make sure to implement?
Well, I'm a parent myself. I have a 19-year-old son. That's not need parenting anymore. So definitely there is a bit of struggle there, but it's getting better, knock on wood. And also I was a child myself too. And my mom lives with us. So she still sometimes looks at me as that 14-year-old girl who needs help, who needs guidance, as opposed to, I'm not telling you how old I am, 46, but it's an interesting situation of how do you deal with that? And that is a great question, Frank, because that's what I'm trying to showcase, that not just Lila, but all the other characters encounter this issue where someone with good intention tries to help them. Does that mean that they have to take that road, or are there other options that they just haven't thought of yet?
Now, Jenny, this world, of course, is very complicated and has multiple layers. How do you pitch that to the fans at home, and what parts are you seeing them gravitate to the most?
It is a huge world building universe, but I mean, Frank, you know me well enough by now that's, literally like I'm a kid in a candy shop, right? It's like, oh, okay. Darn, it's a big world building universe that she's built. What a bummer. So there's a couple of things. So what you always want to do is talk with your client. So in this case, getting to know SG was a huge part. And we probably spent about 3 months. So I read all the books, but I also read the world building Bibles, and she's got very, very, very in-depth world building Bibles. And what that allows me to do is talk with SG just like you are right now. And you find out, okay, what are our primary? Who's our primary character? What's the primary theme? Overarching. So the 7 Galaxies Chronicles, her entire series, what's the overarching? And since SG, you've got it planned, that was something that she could give me. Then I look at it as what's the secondary. So in each of these books, that we're going to start with the Last Lumenian, the first one, what is the primary conflict? What's that plot? Who's the main character? And in this case, it's Leela, but it's also, and this always sells well, her found family. I cannot go wrong with a sci-fi fantasy subgenre with a found family. She's given me literally the keys to the kingdom of fandom for me to be able to go out and just go, hey guys, found family, and everybody just rushes over. But then in addition to that, what we get to do is we get to play with a lot of content. So there are so many cool characters, and then you've got this world building. And to go back to your question about the sci-fi fantasy combination, one of the things that I'm finding from the marketing side, and this is, I'm sorry, SG, you've heard me pound this drum so much in the past 6 months, but one of the things that's been very frustrating for me as a fan, but also as a marketer in fandom, is that you have military sci-fi and you have high fantasy. And there isn't a lot that's marketed in between. There are quite a few authors who are out there really growing this subgenre. But for one thing, Goodreads, Amazon, the rest of them, they don't really know how to label it. You're either dumped in action adventure or just sci-fi or just fantasy. So how do fans find you? And that's where we've been having a lot of fun, really pushing the combination of sci-fi fantasy and using that as a hook to get people in addition to Leela, found family, the huge universe that they're living in, because that appeals to an enormous spectrum, whether you're 13 or 60, male or female, it applies and appeals to everybody, which has been very fun at events in our marketing, reaching out to fans and developing all of the online communities that we've got.
Yeah. Immediately when you say found family, right away, Guardians of the Galaxy, Star Trek crews, It just
Right.
starts popping in right away. And then there's kind of this growing trend. It's funny to say growing trend. They're literally celebrating the 50th anniversary right now. But D&D is on the rise again, and that is very much a found family adventuring through a world, and that puts fantasy from high end fantasy, this elves talking in a language we don't quite understand, to hey, you just got into a tavern brawl. And so
Yeah.
it's nice to kind of see that the world is starting to embrace this new version, or actually very well worn version of fantasy out there.
Yeah. And then there's a lot of us who've been out there doing this as geeks. I mean, I'm old. I know I joke about that with you a lot, but for me, it's always been part of what I thought was really fun about reading or going to the movies or working in entertainment. What's amazing is that we really are at a pretty cool crossroads right now. I mean,
Mhm.
it really is people my age in charge who are saying, "Oh yeah, you know what? A D&D game or a tabletop game or a comic book or sci-fi fantasy, let's bring it on. Let's do it." We're very lucky that that's where we are.
Yeah.
I don't feel that this is a flash in the pan either. It
Mm.
is it has become too ingrained in our entertainment cloth right now. It really is woven into everything that we're doing, that it isn't the new thing. When I was starting, it was the new thing. Nobody wanted to do it. Nobody wanted to be involved. And that's why I got to do great projects, because I volunteered and nobody cared. But now the beauty of this is I tell people, just friends that I've worked with, hey, this is the IP I'm working with, and this is the author and what she's done. And they get excited with my 30-second pitch.
Mhm.
So it is a really good time, and it's an exciting time to have stories like SGs to bring out there.
Yeah. And then it's the characters that people attach to, right? That let them explore this world. And SG, I'd like to talk to you about this. With Leela, how do you keep this someone who's growing so much, someone who is relatable to people at home, but is also in a galactic war? How do you keep Leela relatable to the readers at home?
The way I keep her relatable, Frank, is that I give her faults. She has all these, wrong self-belief that at the start of the story, she thinks that she can't do something. She doesn't have the magic, so she starts the story by having this false belief. And as the story progresses, with the help of friends and with the help of opponent, believe it or not, while the opponent challenges her, she starts to realize that she's wrong, that she's not strong, or she's wrong, that she is not good enough, right? So the more she encounters these problems, the more she realizes that she is so much more than she imagined. And that's the beauty of the story, is that as we see the hero do that, the readers can experience that in their own life, and experience that self-revelation that they do are stronger than they know.
I really hope the readers embrace that. They start to see the growth and start to see it in themselves, and follow through with that as well. That is truly wonderful. Now, looking at this, again, this galactic world you build, what was your primary, what was your first steps into this world building? Did you want to create the character first, or were you wanting to build the world first? And then, in talking about the world, how do you go about that? Because I think there's so many people right now. We go back to D&D as a DM and stuff like that, where you're like, oh, I want to make sure to focus on this town. Where do you start? It just feels like it's an endless project.
It definitely feels like it's an endless project, Frank. And the way I start to orient myself is I have two steps when it comes to the world building. I have my structural step, where I create a world that challenges the hero's weakness, which is that wrong self-belief. And that is, if it's she believes she's not good enough, then I create a patriarchal world that challenges her. Well, how do you fit into this world if you already don't think you're good enough, right? I create a world that challenges her, and everything, from the weather to the mountains, is there on a purpose. And then I spend months on diving deep into what does the daily life look like on this world. Who are these people? What's their history? What kind of clothing they wear? What's their food? And then you get to see this much in the books, because world building tends to be passive, and storytelling is a very active way of sharing the story. So I usually balance it with just sprinkling in that world building that allows you to immerse yourself with the hero.
It's funny to hear you say that, because when you are kind of building this world out in your mind, as a novice, you're driving around thinking about it. You're driving around thinking about like, oh, the weather today would be like this, and this is what the townsfolk would be doing. And to hear somebody, an author, actually put that out there and say like, okay, now you have to scale it back and actually make it. It's good advice for us at home trying to do this ourselves. That's
But as the marketer, don't get rid of it, because that is, I'm sorry, it's the marketer in me, but also the geek in me. Don't get rid of that, because that is unbelievable, just gold for me. I know we don't get a lot of it in the books, but the beauty of that is that we can create, in the marketing side of it, branded content that does explore that. And how cool is that you get to do some supplemental bridge in between the books that dives into this world that SG you couldn't write about, because that wasn't the focus of book 5 that's coming out. But over here, I mean, I've already got notes, right? I've got like, okay, what are we going to do in January and February? And it's fun to do that. So Frank, don't ever get rid of it, because it is gold for you and for whoever helps you push the books out and connect with your fandom.
And absolutely. I'm sorry, Frank. Just one, if anyone needs that world building, Patricia Reedy, it's WREDE, and she's a Sci-Fi Fantasy Writers of America member. She put up these questions. It's literally 500 questions that tackles these aspects. Wow. That's what I use. And I go through these questions every single book. I delete what I don't need. I write what I need. That's how I create my world building. Highly recommend to anyone.
Okay, I just learned that.
Yeah. That is amazing. I'm going to put a link to that in the description as well. That is pretty neat to see.
Ah, that's cool.
Yeah. And then also just what you're saying there, Jenny, too, when you're doing that, when you're pulling from something that's, native to the world, it doesn't feel forced, because so many times when you're hearing about marketing, it feels like it's forced content, that they're having to drag something out. But when it's natural, when it's just really a part of the world, it's easier to embrace as a fan.
It is. And it's one of the reasons I left what I was doing with the studios is because there was so much windowing. And you and I have talked about this, Frank, a lot. And SG, we've talked about it, that campaigns are a lot of times still just based around the release of the book, the film, the movie, the streaming, the music. And then the fans are dropped off a cliff right after. There's called a 6-week tail is what you usually do. What the world building allows you to do, that a lot of times a forced campaign. So if I was doing something for Deadpool, we would have lots of ideas, but some of them would be just forced ideas that connected to a brand or a product placement or something like that. In this case, what we've got stories that are supplemental to the existing books that people are reading or to the comic book. And so it actually connects to the stories, but is something that's broader and deeper. So people that want to do a deeper dive, great. Or if you just want to have fun with a little game that we've done that is connected, great. And that means that they get to play in this universe across a fairly broad media platform without it feeling like it's I love your phrase, a forced campaign.
And then there's this natural connection with SG yourself. Let's go back to Deadpool for an example there. I think a lot of the success behind Deadpool is the fact that Ryan Reynolds is out there. He's working on his own project and he's sharing that. I mean, I'm literally wearing his shirt right now.
Oh, you are?
So, but they're sitting there too. SG, they get to meet you. And like Jenny was talking about beforehand, that just makes it so much easier to read these books, because they're like, oh, okay, I like this author. I want to get into that world. That's cool.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely an amazing experience, Frank, to have these events. And I thought I'm going to be so scared to do these events that I thought I'm shy. So when I first had my Comic-Con, it was a big surprise for all of us, including myself, that I had a blast. I'm hooked.
Oh, yeah. That's the hard part, is trying to travel to all the places once you're hooked. Well, speaking of Comic-Cons, the last booth I saw you guys have was this grand booth. You actually had actors out there. What is that like to see your world come to life in a little segment like that?
Frank, it is surreal. It is bizarre. It is magical. It is fantastical. It is a dream come true. It is all of this, and you don't have time to enjoy it because time to work, and I love my work. It's absolutely... There are no words to describe. It's just so unbelievable.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember which one. Do you remember, Jenny, which one it was? I know we took pictures of it and stuff like that.
think it was at WonderCon. Well, no,
Oh.
but I saw you guys at LACC last year too.
Yeah.
So we had it. We'll have another one at LACC this year, and had it at San Diego. But I think specifically it was LACC and WonderCon, and those took place kind of in between book one and book two. The one that we're doing at LACC this year, that we'll take pictures and we'll send those over to you. It will take place before the show comes out, is going to take place actually in book five's environment. So what's really exciting is we actually caught up now through these events to the release of the book, and we can tie the book to the booth, to the experience, and immerse fans, not just when SG is sitting there going, hey, here's the book, here's the background, here's some really cool downloads for you, but they're actually walking around, immersing themselves in the environment. So we finally caught up, which is really cool.
Think about it as the fans too, who go regularly to these events, and they're seeing the booth progress too as they're following along the stories. That's just a fun experience.
It really is. And SG's got really cool, dedicated fans who come back to each event, even when we're not local to the West Coast, and they come over. And we've got, gosh, I think about 50 to 100 who show up every time. And that's just, that's amazing to see that. It's just crazy, and it is such a testament to SG's personality connecting with these fans, and the writing that connects with these fans. It's one or the other can work, right? You can have the writing connect, but that no harm, no foul, no shade to throw. For some authors, that's not what they're going to do, right? They're going to put their work out there, and that's what they do, and that's great.
Yeah. But
to have the 1-2 punch of having the work out there and the connection personally with an author is, I just see it on their faces. It's like this glow, and they're so excited. And then they hang out at the booth and stay with us, and we get to know them. And that's really why I do this job, honestly, is to see that connection.
And when you think back to the authors, I think the ones everybody's popping in their head right now are the ones that find that balance between the two. I'm thinking of a few right now where I'm like, it's because I know the person.
Yeah, exactly. And again, there's lots, James Patterson is not going to go out to every single event in the world. And I get that. So there is no right or wrong way to do it. But from my point of view, to make that connection, especially, and I do have to say, in the sci-fi fantasy world, there is a difference, and there is a connection that needs to be made, whether you do it in person or not. It just means the world to fans. And it's the same thing that I tried to tell, and Frank, you and I have talked about this forever, tried to tell the studios that when you have that franchise and you're not making that connection, or worse, you've made the connection and you don't sustain it, you don't spend the time after you've made the connection, that fan's not going to come back. Or if they do, it will be lip service. They might pay to see the movie, but they're not going to spend other money, and they won't spend time with you. And what SG does is she allows these fans to be comfortable in their own space with her about the book. That is incredibly unique and very special.
Yeah, it's something that the big studios and the big authors are only trying to reach, and it comes naturally here. That is wonderful.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, SG, with all this new, you're meeting all these fans. It's out of your comfort zone a little bit there. Has there been any memorable fan moments or anything that stands out to you?
Frank, there have been so many unbelievable moments throughout this almost 2 year of events. Mm-hmm. I had returning fans from the beginning, so their jaw dropped when they saw that immersive booth, and they were so genuinely happy for where we're progressing. We have fans who travel to all these other events, and they bring their friends and family, and they're doing the pitch I did to them, and they're like, tell them the joke. It's just such an amazing feeling. And then, when they start hanging around, they feel more comfortable, of course. And then they tell me, they just love coming to my booth, because then I joke with them. They laugh, they get to sit a little bit, and then they recharge, and they have even more fun. So it is such an amazing positive feedback loop, that I see them, I get happy. They see me, they get happy, and then I get even more happier, and then they get even more happier. And it's really is such a beautiful connection. And every time I see them returning, it means the world to me.
And I gotta just, this is our first time actually meeting face to face, and I could tell already. I'm more invested in the world than I'm already invested in, and so it's just really cool. I can imagine being at that booth and being like,
Right?
I want the set.
Yeah, exactly. That's
Yeah.
exactly it.
Now, with all these new voices coming in from outside sources, again, fans and reviewers, has there been anything that you've learned about your own story that you maybe didn't realize was in there, or maybe you wanted to kind of change and add more of it in?
Frank, the only thing I've learned is that readers can put it down, which was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Some said it as a complaint because they stayed up till 3 in the morning. I'm so sorry for that, and they had work in the morning.
Yeah.
And one of the most surprising compliment that I received from a fan was at London Comic Con, and for the Love of Fantasy event, and she said that her son read the book. Her son is, I believe, autistic.
Hmm.
And the chapters were structured so well that he was able to immediately dive in and immerse and enjoy reading the book because it was, helping him to read the book, and that was amazing. That was such an amazing compliment.
That could fuel you for a year. That's amazing.
I told you.
I know.
Oh, that's beautiful. Oh, wow. Okay, we have this amazing story. We have a new book coming out this December, guys, and the links will be in the description to get involved as much as you can. How far out are you planning out this story? If you can tell us anything.
I can tell you a lot. This is a 13-book series.
Oh,
I'm already
nice.
hinting for the upcoming next 9-book series. And I'm already hinting for the upcoming 7-book series after that. And I'm working on a comic book series called The Mythical Hunters that happens before Jenny has that beautiful shirt.
There it is.
And that is 176 comics. So that's about 15 years of my life.
Jenny, you're going to be busy.
I know. That's what she tells me. I think I'm locked in. And it's the Mythical Hunters comic book series. We just premiered in July.
Mhm.
And what's really fun about that is that's an all ages one. And it's really genuinely such an exciting adventure. It is truly an adventure. And there's some really good, I mean, I'm always liking whatever you're reading on New Comic Book Day, and we're talking about what comes out. But I'm really excited to add this to New Comic Book Day when we can start really getting these going, because it's such a cool, fun story. And it really is, again, sci-fi fantasy. It's action, it's adventure. It's got a female lead, but she's got essentially an assassin who's her partner. And then there's all these crazy mythical creatures. So it's everything you want in a comic book. It's visual, it's a great story, it's exciting. And the minute you finish it, you're like, whoa, come on. When's the next one?
Oh, yeah, that's the best. When can we see this new comic book series starting? To get an idea.
It already did. Yeah. So it's
Okay.
it's on the website. You can get the first issue through the website. You can get all the books through the website, plus merch from each of the 2 series. The Last Lumenian series, we've got enamel pins and Mythical Hunters. And then because SG doesn't have enough to do, she's got the 5th book coming in December. She's already started the 6th book and the 2nd comic book. So
oh my God.
That's all.
I wish I had your energy. How can I harness your energy, SG? I need to get this productivity in my life.
It's both sci-fi and fantasy, and it's a secret.
Yeah.
There you go. I love that. The 5th book coming in December. Now we're gonna have to spread the news. What are you guys doing to share the 5th book with everybody?
We tell everybody that we meet. We grab them on the street. Oh, no, I'm kidding. We're not supposed to grab people.
We'll be at LA Comic Con,
Right.
and obviously this comes out after, but we'll be there. But the big thing we're doing, which is really exciting, it's groundbreaking, is that we are working with Eventual and Scott Addison Clay on a brand new custom-made virtual platform, and we are doing a virtual book tour with SG. It'll be November 2nd, December 8th, and then a to-be-determined date in January. And it is RSVP. It's invite event-driven, but it's free. We are offering these first 3 events for free. and you'll be able to, we don't have the RSVP link yet, but we'll have it ready. If you go to sgblaise.com and sign up for the newsletter, you'll get, especially since you'll sign up for the newsletter, you'll get the exclusive first link to the RSVP for the event. Yeah. And what we'll be doing is we're calling it Exploring the Galaxies of SG Blaise, and she's going to have special guests. She's going to have activations, and the most fun part of it is it's an interactive fan event. So she's going to be inviting special fans to come up onto the virtual stage with her. We're going to do fan art. We're going to do interviews. We're going to bring in cosplayers. So it's groundbreaking, and it's really fun. And I am so thankful that SG was up for this, because this is a really cool thing to do. So
that's neat.
I can't wait.
Yeah, and it's neat to be able to, like your working relationship with SG, try something new. Like you're talking about the activations is such a big thing right now. I'm seeing it, like even X-Men's on board with these activations and stuff like that. Right. So it's cool to see it's on the cutting edge.
Yeah, exactly.
And then that newsletter, please guys, head to the description and sign up for the newsletter and all the links as well. Guys, this has been a fantastic discussion. I love talking with you, SG, and of course, Jenny, anytime. Thank you both for being with me today.
Oh, thank you so much, Frank. This was a blast.
That's good.
I'm sure I'll see you again.
Of course. All right, everybody. Again, follow the links in the description, and we will be with you guys next week. Bye.